Hello everyone, this is part 2 of What If Naruto Left Konoha Forever, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. By the time the meeting was over, it was 10 o'clock at night. Shizune had left to find Naruto and her grandkids with a whole life of questions popping in her head. She was just about to the private section of the ship where she was told Naruto and the kids were when a roar was heard so loud it could be heard for miles. It drew the attention of everyone on board the ship, and suddenly all the lights on the ship came on that had been turned off for sleeping passengers. Spotlights came on and started to search out to sea as everyone came out to find the disturbance. For the older generation, that sound was one that brought back a lot of painful memories. A shadow was seen approaching the ship when another roar was heard, and Tsunade and Jiraiya appeared next to Shizune and asked, "What's going on?" Shizune looked out at the shadow just becoming visible in the darkness as the spotlights turned onto it and made the outline of a creature more easily seen. After a few moments, everyone was drawn toward that side of the ship, and a giant fox with 8 tails could be seen in blue, and a figure could be seen standing on top of it, and the closer it got, the figure could be seen as Naruto. Itachi landed with Sasuke and asked, "What are you doing here, Naruto?" getting everyone's attention. The figure jumped off the head of the fox and glided down with flowing grace and a white kimono, and gracefully touched down on the deck of the ship as everyone looked at the figure, who looked like Naruto, but after further observation it was Naruto's no jutsu body. The female Naruto said, "Itachi, get that idiot of a brother of mine and get his ass out here." Yuki said, "It's time and he better not be late this time." Itachi nodded and left in a swirl of leaves, and Sasuke said, "Who has the others, Naruto?" The female Naruto turned to Sasuke and said, "They are with Karen at the Uchiha compound." Naruto appeared beside Sasuke and said, "You took her glasses, didn't you, Naruto, and what the hell are you doing here? I told you not to leave Yuki's side until I got back." Naruto said, "Listen, idiot. Of course I took her glasses." Yuki said, "It's time and for me to get you ass there now. Why else do you think I would summon Mirana to bring me here in the middle of the night?" Naruto paled and said, "But they are not supposed to be here for another week." Naruto said, "It's not my fault. Now get your ass going. I will watch over Yuna and Arashi." And the fox disappeared off the water in a puff of smoke. Naruto looked around frantic and said, "Naruto, Tsunade knows, and also Shizune and Erozanen are related, so find out from them." As he jumped into the air and seemed to float as wind gathered around him as he floated in the air out over the sea, and then he started to do hand signs and suddenly screamed, "Kuchio's no jutsu, summoning technique, Kyuubi no Kitsune," and suddenly a cloud of red smoke appeared, and there underneath Naruto is the nightmare of 16 years ago. The Kyuubi in all his glory. Naruto said, "Kyuubi, get me to Yuki fast." Kyuubi said, "Fine kid, but remember not to call me agent until the battles." And he took off running toward the way Naruto appeared. Everyone was wide-eyed, and Sakura came running up and looked around and asked, "What was that, and why is Naruto in his no jutsu form?" Everyone turned to look at her, and Naruto said, "You suck, Sakura-san." A. That was the Kyuubi, and B. I am not Naruto. Tsunade finally got over her shock and asked, "If you're not Naruto, then who are you?" Naruto turned to her and said, "Well, Bachan. I am his twin sister, Naruto." Everyone was standing mouthed agape, and Kiba said, "Twin." And Sakura said, finishing his sentence, "Sister." Ibiki came through the crowd and said, "It's good to see you, Agent Naruto. Since you recovered and left, I have not had a chance to see you." Naruto turned and in a kind soft voice said, "It's good to see you also, Ibiki-san. How have you been?" Ibiki said, "Good, and you?" Naruto said, "I have been great, taking care of all my nieces and nephews." Speaking of, where are the other two at? Ino said, "Other two? I thought Naruto only had 2 kids, and how is it that he has a twin sister that we never seen before?" Naruto flinched at that part and looked at Ibiki-san, and he said, "Naruto has not told anyone about you yet. It's a touchy subject because of it." She nodded and said, "Well, my idiot brother has little Arashi, who is the oldest, and his twin Yuna. He also has Tsunade, Jiraiya, Orochimaru, Kakashi, Rin, Obito, Sakura, Sasuke and little Naruto Jr. who are also born at the same time. Kiba screamed, "What the F? That's 9 kids born at the same time. How the hell did that happen and why did he name those kids that?" Several people started to laugh, among them were Rin, Itachi, Sasuke, and Naruto, who said, "The answer is really simple. He did it out of respect because even though those names are from people who either were alive or are alive, they also have one thing in common. Can anyone guess what it is?" Everyone turned and Jiraiya said, "They all are the last 3 Team 7s, but what I don't understand is where did they come from? When he was here last time he only had the 2. Naruto smiled and said, "The little s of a brother got her pregnant agent before he left and because of Cubis' influence she could have them safely." Shizune asked, "What do you mean Naruto, and are you really his twin sister?" Naruto said, "Well, a secret my brother has is anyone who gets bodily fluids like blood or gets his special abilities to heal from any wound, and also they restore the body after damage, so after she gave birth within a week she had not only her body back like it was when her and Naruto first met, but also it repairs any minor wounds. She lost all the fat from the pregnancy. I'm glad I got the also so when I have kids. And to answer your question Shizune Nichan, I am his twin sister. Now what did he mean we were related and how is Erozanan related to me?" Shizune looked around and said, "I am Naruto mother, so that means I guess I am also your mother. Jiraiya-sama is your grandfather." Naruto schemed into the sky, "No." Kakashi stepped forward and asked, "Who is arriving that Naruto was not expecting?" Naruto said, "Oh, that would be the new kids. He missed the last 2 labors so he wanted to be sure to be here for this one." Tsunade felt weak in the knees and asked, "Exactly how many kids is he expecting this time?" Naruto said, "Just 2 this times." Sakura said, "That's impossible to have that many multiple births like that." Naruto smiled and said, "Spring country's not the only thing fertile here. Personally I think the fox had something to do with it, but who knows? It might be karma paying him back." Shizune asked, "What was it that Ibiki mentioned earlier?" Naruto flinched and looked down at the deck and said, "It is when an assassin thought I was Naruto and tried to kill me, or they did depending on how you look at it. I need to go check on Yuna and Arashi. Ibiki-san, would you mind informing them?" Ibiki nodded and they parted for her to walk by. After she was gone everyone turned to Ibiki, who sighed and said, "It started." Flashback. A 7-year-old Naruto was in the Sarutobi compound where she had lived in secret for the past 7 years. She was told the truth about her brother and they saw each other when they could. Naruto had promised to come see her today, but now it was 8:30 p.m. and he had not made it, so she snuck out and crossed the village to get to Naruto's apartment. She had a key and walked in and reached for the light switch to turn on the light when someone grabbed her arm, and then she felt a massive pain in her chest and saw a kunai sticking out right by her heart. She fell but luckily turned just enough so the kunai did not go further in. The last thing she saw was Naruto walking in the room before she blacked out. End flashback. Naruto, when he saw his sister on the ground after returning from an ABNU mission, knocked both guys out quickly. He then started to help her as best as he could, but she would soon. They missed her heart but were close enough that it did not matter. Sakura asked, "Then how did she live?" Ibiki said, "The Kyuubi told Naruto of a way to save her by giving his blood to her directly at the wound and pumping some of his chakra into her. It healed the wound enough to keep her alive, but the mental damage was too much for her. She was trapped in her mind in shock and her body. It took her body 6 years to recover completely because of the difficulty of healing a major organ like the heart along with the poison of the weapon. Naruto used a forbidden kinjutsu and put her mind inside the seal while her body was recovering." Ino asked, "Why did he do that?" Ibiki said, "So she could still experience the world instead of the darkness of the coma her body was in. He blamed himself for not keeping his promise about being on time, so he vowed to never break a promise again. Whenever you saw Naruto use his Seijutsu, it was when he was giving control of his body to Naruto. It was a way to allow her some freedom to live. The kinjutsu kept her mind anchored to her body, so her mental image changed with her body, so it aged as well. If you notice, about that time is when he quit using the jutsu. After she was back in her body, she used a henge to walk around town until he got married and sent her here for protection." Tsunade asked, "What happened to the 2 men Ibiki?" Ibiki paled and asked, "Do you really want to know?" Tsunade said, yes. Ibiki looked around and said, Naruto does not know what he did and he asked me never to tell, but it's the only time I questioned his sanity. He made both men swallow a seed. Shizune asked, that's it. Ibiki shook his head and said, you don't understand. He made them suffer for a week straight with what he did. He used his bloodline to control the seed's growth and had it go into every part of Theobe but not enough to decay them. He then had them break the skin at each joint of Theobe. It was deranged watching plants come out of a human body causing a finger to fall off before the next, then the hands and the arms. It was a slow and painful process. If they passed out he stopped, and with the plants coming out like they did they could not bleed to death. After he finally killed them he sent both B back to their countries. One to Cloud and one to Iwa with a note saying, you missed Naruto and I went easy on them. If you send any more I will kill your entire army. Signed the White Ghost. Kakashi fell backwards as he heard the name getting everyone's attention. Jiraiya asked, what is it Kakashi? Kakashi said, the White Ghost was Naruto. I thought he was just a myth the ABNU created to scare people. Hiashi asked, what do you mean Kakashi? Itachi said, the White Ghost was Naruto codename. While in the village he had a standard black ABNU uniform, but once he left the village he turned it inside out so it was pure white. With his true SKS he could kill you and be 100 yards away before the blood would spray out of your body. On the 220 missions we did together he never had a single drop of blood touch his cloak. Ibiki said, the 610 missions he did after that was also the same. Never a drop of blood on him, but his enemies would be covered in blood and cuts. His true speed and SKS is amazing and terrifying at the same time. Tsunade said, that's it. How the hell did he trick nearly the entire village full of ninja without them knowing it? If what you say is true then he is practically a god of war or something. Ibiki sighed and said, I have all info on him that I have if you want to go over it, but I think a more private location is in order. Tsunade nodded and said, I want all of you to come also. I want us all to figure out how the hell he did it. Everyone followed behind her into a conference room and Shizune said, let's start with his early life and work from there. Itachi said, I would probably be the closest to that then. I met Naruto when he was 5. He had already been training under the Sandaime and I was skeptical at first, but after he beat me in a fight I learned he was more than what he seemed. Kakashi said, but you were already an ABNU captain at that point. Itachi nodded and said, you don't think I relayed that? He did not just beat me though. He flat out humiliated me. Speed, weapon precisions, jutsu, hand sign speed, taijutsu, and genjutsu he outclassed me in. I attacked with everything I had and he stated one form of combat and beat me for 20 minutes each form. I laid one hit on him in taijutsu and after that he broke both my arms and 4 ribs. Everyone was stunned at the revelation, most having seen Itachi's SK up front. Itachi said, after that the Sandaime put him in my squad under me. The one thing I learned from Naruto and the Sandaime was that if you want to hide something put it out front. My squad was one of the most famous until the end. Yet can anyone tell me the name of the other 3 members of it? No, the reason is because everyone was looking at me because of the fame of a child being in ABNU. No one suspected him being there. We did a total of 220 successful mission. 45 B rank, 75 A rank and 100 S rank missions without a fatality or a single person being hurt. Ibiki stepped forward and said, it was after the incident with Naruto that I first met Naruto without his mask. Up to then I had no idea. Every day I would see him or his clone in the streets screaming and being annoying, but like Itachi said, the best way to hide something was out in the open. If Naruto walks into a room before today, what would most of your initial reactions have been? Ignore the annoying pest, right? That was his mask he hid behind. Nothing he does is a waste. Every action he did is planned out, every move flawlessly executed. Take his match with Kiba during the prelims. Kiba said, don't remind me, he farted in my face. Ibiki chuckled and said, actually, no he did not. That was a knockout drug he made for caping missions, but he could not pull it out during battle in the village or it would have raised questions. He used a subtle genjutsu to make everyone think he farted while he released the drug into the air. In 10 minutes, no matter what, you would have been asleep. He could have beaten you at any time, but he limited his SKS to Kichibunshin's only, and even then he went easy on you. Think of how many he uses daily and ask how only 5 at most would be a difference. Neji said, then what about my match? I had closed his chakra points and beat him until he drew on Cubus chakra. Abiki burst out laughing and said, that's funny. He used Cubus chakra as a discus to cover his increase in speed. If he took off his gravity seals you would have been toast the moment the match began. Guy asked, how much weight does he have on now? Sasuke said, now or in that match with Neji. Lee shouted, both. Sasuke said, in the match with Neji he had 65 times normal gravity, now he has 100 times. Jia thought for a moment and said, impossible, his body should have been crushed. Neji asked, what do you mean Guy, how much did he have when he fought me? Tsunade said, Naruto body weight has been constant of 150 pounds since he was 10 according to medical records, so that means he had 9,750 pounds of weights on. Now he has 15,000. Hiash asked, how good is he then? Inoiki said, I think we will find out at the battles. Sakura thought for a moment and asked, who is the real Naruto? Naruto walked in and said, that's the question Sakura. Truth be told he is just a tired warrior who wants to put away his swords. Choji asked, what do you mean? Tenten said, it's an old saying, it means that he wishes to leave the battlefield and live a normal life. If what everyone is saying is true then that makes sense because he never got to live one before. He was forced to endure beatings as a child. Trained to K before most are taught to read, lived a double life that was neither his real self and also a village can hate him. I can't understand why he would do it. Everyone seemed to consider that and Naruto said, it's all he had, as she left everyone to their thoughts. The next day when the ship pulled into the docks it was 7 a.m. and everyone was awake at that time and started down the ramp and was surprised by the prosperity of the harbor town they docked at. It looked like it was half the size of Konoha and everything looked well taken care of. Tsunade looked around and Itachi said, if everyone would follow me to the train station. We can be at the castle within the hour, and lead the group through the village and soon to the train station. Nobody said anything, not knowing what to say. Naruto had taken both kids on up ahead the moment they got to shore. Shizune had left to talk to her but did not get a chance to because when she found her after the meeting she was asleep with the kids. Sakura asked, hey Sasuke, why did you not return to the village after the fights? Sasuke said, I had my family agent so I took my fiancé with me here to live. If I would have returned to Konoha I would have been nothing more than breeding stock. I did not want that so I chose this instead. Sakura looked down and said, so I see you moved on. Sasuke said, move on, Sakura, we were teammates and somewhat of friends but we were never more than that, no matter what you thought you wanted. You never really tried to know the real me. You saw my name, money, and fan clubs so you blew a friendship away to try and impress me. I was not looking for someone who would change to be with me. I wanted someone who would be themselves, as he walked ahead of her and she sighed. Itachi shook his head and walked up beside Sakura and said, you know that you really should try and look at it from his point of view. Sakura looked at Itachi and asked, what point of view was that? Itachi smirked and said, simple. What would you do if nobody wanted you for you? Instead they wanted you for what they could get, as he walked away from her. Sakura stopped and said, I was not like that. Ino laughed and said, yes you were. We both were, as she sat down next to Sakura. Hiash looked at Hinata and asked, so tell me. How much of this have you been hiding? I see you have not stuttered once since the truth came out and you seem calm. Hinata smiled and said, if you wondering if I am stronger than you think I am then you're right. That was all an act so I could get out of the compound so I can spy for Naruto-sama. Hiash said, I see, as he looked away. Hanabi asked, then who is actually stronger, you or father? Itachi who heard this said, Hinata, no offense Hiashi but Hinata is probably the only one beside Jiraiya or myself that can last against Naruto for any amount of time if he were to get serious and that is only from experience mostly as well as SKS. Hiashi nods and Hanabi looked at her sister with some new respect. As the train moved everyone could see how beautiful the country was and Gaara tensed and looked around the cab and asked, did anyone else just feel that? Everyone looked at him questionably and Tsunade asked, what? Gaara said, I'm not sure. It felt like Naruto when he was drawing on Kyuubi chakra for a moment but then it was gone. Soon it frowned and everyone glanced at each other. Finally they arrived at the castle which the train went to within a quarter of a mile of, and as they approached they saw several people running around. Jiraiya jumped ahead of the group and grabbed a guard and asked, "What's wrong?" The guard said, "Lord Jiraiya, sorry for worrying your group. We were not expecting you for another hour. Naruto-sama asked us to do battle drills in case someone decided to make a run for the castle during the battle, sir. If your group would wait for about 15 minutes we would be glad to escort you in, but please refrain from getting involved in the drill." Oh crap, here comes the third wave. Jiraiya turned and saw a combination of Iwa and Kumo nins with a red sash on their arms all running toward the bridge that connected with the castle. Jiraiya screamed, "Everyone out of the way and let them pass, it's battle drills," as he jumped to the side as several Iwa nins jumped over the group from Konoha. All the Konoha people moved to the side and watched as men came out of the woods throwing grappling hooks as well as doing jutsu to make earth bridges to allow them to cross. As the battle heated up they saw several of the defending troops get hit by pressure points and a lot of the attacking groups went up in smoke, and everyone was looking at the attack patterns and plans and surprised by how thought out they were. Finally an alarm went off and all the Kumo and Iwa nins went up in smoke and a swirl of leaves appeared on the bridge and Naruto appeared and said, "Captains, front and center." 10 men came running up and said, "Yes sir." Naruto walked in front of them and said, "All right, I am proud of the initial defenders successfully stalling the first wave while alerting the castle to the attack as well as beginning preparation to move the VIPs. Captions 1 through 3 good job." 3 men said, "Thank you sir." Naruto turned and said, "Now on to the second wave." For the most part one was pleased with it. I was however saddened when I saw the east wing was breached and 1 out of 3 of the troops in that area were taken out of the battle either with injurious out/s. This is not acceptable. Caption 5. I want you and Caption 6 on dividing your long-range fighters and close-range fighters with more going to the east wing. I know that the west wing was protected perfectly, Caption 6, but you also have to understand only Junins would be able to get across at that area of the ravine using several earth jutsu, which gives your long-range attackers more time to take him out. The east wing with a simple earth jutsu could be breached by any genin who has had chakra leaping training. We need to make that side more defensible. Caption 4, you squad's ability to get information from squad 1 through 3, replacing their injured men, getting the wounded to a defendable spot to receive medical attention as well as protecting the medics while having squads 1 through 3 fortify the front entrance was excellent. However, you also had one problem. The medics supplies were in the wrong area and your men that were having to run and get them was costing time, which results in the loss of lives. Overall, I want you to tell your men that they have improved greatly from the last time I was here and I am proud to have them protecting my family. Naruto stopped and looked at the last 3 captions and said, "All right, Caption 7, please tell me exactly what your squad's primary objective is." The caption said, "To secure the emergency exit for our troops and the royal family." Naruto nods and said, "And where were half of your troops during this battle?" The caption said, "At their jobs, sir." Naruto nods and asked, "And where were you?" The caption looked confused and said, "What do you mean, sir?" Naruto looked at him with a glare and said, "What I mean is, when your men were doing their duty, where were you?" as he unleashed some ki. The caption was sweating and gasping for breath and the caption of Squad 8 said, "Sir, it was my." Naruto hit him with a silencing jutsu and said, "Silence, Captain. I know you're wanting to protect your brother for taking the blame for his mistake, but don't. He needs to hear this himself and his men have a right to know what their leader was doing during this drill." The caption of Squad 7 said, "I was." Naruto sighed and said, "You were with your wife in the broom closet having s while you should have been at your post ensuring the escape route with your men. I know you are an honorable man, but think about this. If you did that during a real battle and your men had been killed and you decided to protect your wife by having her escape where everyone believes is the escape route but they were all s, what would happen to your wife most likely?" The man looked down and said, "I'm sorry, sir. I thought that since this was all a drill it would be all right." Naruto sighed and said, "Yes, I understand that, but you put your men, the men of the other squads and your own family at risk by doing that. Your actions, if this was real, could have been the death of everyone here. We each have our own part to do and each has to support each other. If we don't, then all is lost. Now I could give you a punishment for this, but instead I am going to do this. Squad 7. You have heard what your caption has done. If you see no wrong by his action, then he is free of any punishments. If you feel his is wrong and should be punished, you all decide his punishment. Until you are willing to follow his orders, agent, and have him as your captain, I want the vice captain to step in for him as leader of your squad, and your captain shall become the vice captain until he has earned your trust. The captain of Squad 7 bowed his head and stepped back to where his men were, and another man stepped forward. Naruto looked at him and said, "Now Squad 7, you all did perfect. Even when the enemy discovered the escape route, you were not only able to protect it but also eliminate the threat as well as notify Squad of your progress. Good job. Squad 8, you were able to secure the queen and her family as well as all the important docents, as well as providing backup for Squad 7 when they needed it. I am proud of your squad. Squad 9, your squad performed your duties perfectly by securing all the civilians and escorting them into secure areas as well as setting traps for any enemies. For this I thank you. Now you all have heard what you did good and not on. I want each captain to talk with their squads and try to find ways to improve even more. Agent, I thank you for everything along with my family." Dismissed. Everyone saluted Naruto and walked back to the castle, and Naruto turned to see everyone from Konoha gaping, and Naruto said, "Sorry about that. The ship made better time than I thought it would, so you arrived early. Please follow me inside." Tsunade said, "Wait Naruto, what exactly was that?" Naruto sighed and said, "During the fall of the castle during the reign of Yuki's father, the castle fell in exactly 22 minutes. In that time only 5 people escaped. Hitaki Kakashi, my wife, 2 guards and the advisor who became Yuki's personal bodyguard over the years before when we freed the country. Only reason those 5 even made it was because of Kakashi and his summons. After she took over, she wanted to make sure more of her people could escape should the castle ever fall. Agents, or I helped her create the 9 squads to protect the castle. Each squad had a duty it has to complete. Every time I came here I would use Kijbunshin to test them, and the defense time went from 11 minutes when we first started to 3 hours. In 3 hours time, a Messenger Hawks that are launched by all 3 of the first squads can reach the actual hidden village here that is an hour away and have them send aid. That means that before the castle fell, the enemy would have a counter-attack hitting them and would force the enemy to either retreat or deal with the larger threat, which would allow the evacuation of the castle of all civilians and wounded." Tsunade nods and Shikamaru said, "That's actually a pretty good plan as long as no one delays the ninja from the village somehow." Naruto waved his hand and said, "Not possible," as he suddenly jumped high into the air, and everyone looked at him and gasped as they saw him walking in the sky, and Naruto took out a kunai and dropped it, and every gasped when they heard the sound of the kunai hitting something solid, and Naruto grabbed it and jumped down and said, "There are 10 of those clear ice bridges from here to the village, all taller than Kyuubi. The nins from the village can run across it and attack them from above and don't have to worry about crossing the actual ground. That would slow enemies down, and since the ice is clear, unless you actually know where they are and have the seal on you to allow you to touch it, you could try to land on it all day, and if you did it would KO you without the protection seal. Neat little trick Itachi Zabuza picked up in the mist, and using the basic of Haku bloodline on a seal back in the village makes it a perfect aid for quick travel. Now let's go inside, I want to see if my children are awake yet," as he started to lead the way. Shizune said, "Yes, I can't wait to meet all 13 of my grandchildren." Naruto stopped and looked back and asked, 13, what are you talking about?" Sasuke snickered, as did Itachi, and Naruto glared at both, who shut up quickly, and Tsunade said, "Your sister told us you had the 2 who were on the ship, 9 more, and the 2 who were being born last night." Naruto slapped his head and said, "Damn you guys. Listen everyone, you had a joke pulled on you by my little sister. I only have 6 children. 3 boys and 3 girls. She told you I had 9 of them, right? Did she happen to say the names were those of all of Team 7 members?" Sakura said, "Yes, why?" Naruto shook his head and said, "Kyuubi has some of the summons training Arctic foxes here to be nin animals, and the 9 foxes that are joked to be my children because of how much time they spend around me when I am here are all named after Team 7. Remind me to kick my sister's ass later," as he started walking into the castle. When they made it inside, Naruto led them to the throne room, and as they entered they saw the 2 children from the boat plus another boy and girl that was sitting by a red-headed woman that Sasuke immediately went over to, and as they looked ahead they saw Yuki sitting on a throne with 2 newborns wrapped in her arms asleep. Naruto walked over and took one and sat down beside her and motioned for everyone to come closer. As they did, Naruto said, "Allow me to introduce you all to my real children. You already know Yuna and Arashi, who are over there playing with their pet foxes. Over there with Sasuke and Karin are Minato and Haku. The little girl there in Yuki's arms is Ayami, and this little guy right here is Inari." Shizune stepped forward and said, "Hello, I'm Shizune, and I guess you could say I'm your mother-in-law." Yuki looked at her and said, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Shizune. Would you like to hold your granddaughter?" Shizune said, "If it's alright with you, I would, since I never got to hold either of my children growing up," as she looked saddened. Yuki handed them, and Naruto looked up and saw Tsunade looking at the babies, and Naruto said, "Hey grandma, you want to hold your great-grandson?" Tsunade went wide-eyed and said, "No, I mean I don't want to intrude." Naruto waved his hand and said, "Nonsense, come hold him and take care of him." Tsunade walked forward, and Naruto carefully handed the baby to her, and Tsunade looked at him and smiled a small smile, and the baby yawned, and Tsunade's heart melted for all about 2 seconds when she realized the warm feeling she felt on her chest was not her heart but rather piss. She glared at the baby and said, "You're going to be trouble, just like your father, aren't you?" The baby gave a cute little smile, and Tsunade thought, "Heaven help us all." After that, Naruto showed everyone where they would be staying and allowed them to settle in and learn when the meals would be, and allowed them to travel around the castle. Naruto then put all the children to nap, and Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Shizune all watched them as Naruto and Yuki went to lay down to rest. Naruto showed up a little later, and after getting an earful from her mother and grandparents for the mean trick, as well as hearing about it from Sakura when she ran into her, she finally got to get to know her family. The peace would only last for a short time though, as the time for the tournament started to draw near. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.